Good morning. Welcome to the second panel of the last day of the 5th BRICS conference. I am Maria Antonia, researcher at the Center for BRICS Studies. Follow us through the social networks available in the video description. We will be discussing global health and BRICS with Professor Keo Motaung from Durban University, South Africa. On Tuesday, we had the first part of the panel with Professor Lucas Kerr Oliveira, and the recording is available on IBRA's channel. The 5th BRICS conference started on Tuesday and will end today. If you would like to receive a certificate of participation, there is a form in the descriptions to register your participation. Also, if you'd like to leave any questions to our panelists, please fill the second forms in the description. In the name of the BRICS and Professor Paulo Caselha, coordinator of our research group, I would like to thank the presence of our attendees and panelists. Today, we are here with Professor Keo Motaung. Professor Keo is the full professor, biomedical scientist, and director at Technology Transfer and Innovation at the Durban University of Technology, with more than 23 years of experience in higher education. She is the founder and chief executive officer of Global Health Biotech Limited. As a professor, research scientist, and entrepreneur, she trains her postgraduate students not only how to do research and become a scientist, but also on how to become entrepreneurs. Based on her own scientific exploration into the use of medical plants in tissue engineering of bone and cartilage, she founded a company called Global Health Biotech Limited in 2016. She is an award-winning and has received a number of accolades from far and wide because she has thrown the gauntlet in bringing the gap between science and entrepreneurship. Thank you very much, Professor Keo, for your presence here today. Welcome. So we will now start the panel. Professor Keo, please have the floor.
In South Africa, I would say good afternoon, but I guess in Brazil is good morning, colleagues, and thank you so much, the BRICS organizing committee, to invite me as one of the speakers. I'm excited. What I'm going to talk about, I've been asked to talk about what are the developments in terms of global health in the BRICS countries. So how my talk is going to be, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the economy of South Africa after COVID-19. And when I talk about the commonalities, I'm talking about the commonalities between the BRICS countries. What do we have in common and how we can utilize it? And one of the things that I know in terms of the BRICS countries, what we've got in common is the use of traditional medicine, or can I call it herbal medicine, or some they will call it herbal medicine or traditional medicinal plants. And then the other part is the tissue engineering. Then I'll touch a little bit about the development and then the recommendation. Now, let me always start my talk. I always like to quote a gentleman by the name of Albert Einstein, which I'm definitely sure that most of the people, they've heard about him, even if they didn't see him, like myself, I don't know him, but I like to quote him. He once said, if I were given 1 hour to save the planet, I will spend 59 minutes defining the problem and 1 minute resolving it. And why I'm bringing this is because of the issue that we all worldwide, COVID, that has affected most of us in the world. That's what I'm putting it here. So if you look at the economy of South Africa after COVID, it's not actually known only South Africa, but hence I'm just going to say economy of Africa after COVID. The growth of Africa economy and the ability as a country to compete in the global market depend on the need of more new enterprises and innovation. Why I'm saying so, it is very important that if we want to grow the economy of the country, we need more of enterprises. We need more of innovation. But having said that, in terms of innovation, one could just say innovation, it is there in Africa or in the BRICS country, for instance. But what is also important is the commercialization. Commercialization is always the missing component, even in the universities, because what the university can do, we are very good in terms of innovating. But I guess one of the things that we always struggle is to take whatever we have innovated in the lab to the market. Now, sustainable growth based on innovation and excellence require an increasing number of startup companies, which are likely to provide more and better jobs. I mean, we have seen that COVID has taught us a lesson in terms of what we can do now. So for us, in order for us to make sure that we grow the economy of the country, we really need to have a lot of startup companies which are likely to provide more and better jobs. But when I talk about those startup companies, they need to understand that they'll be able to offer more jobs. University education is becoming progressively diverse with a greater emphasis on the whole experience, not only the academic side of things. One of the things that I also wanted to bring it here, if we put all the universities, I mean, looking at those professors, taking the researchers that has been done in the university, having all those IP that has been done in the venue is an opportunity for us, or is about time that all those things, they can be commercialized. And I think this is one of the things that is lacking, because what is happening more in the university, they will file a lot of patents that should be actually helping. So filing the patent is okay, and it is good. But in terms of what you do with it, are you licensing it? Are you able to commercialize it? Because you might have this patent, and then at the end of the day, you realize that you've got liability. We also need a multidisciplinary work, and culture of collaboration is becoming the norm, with the average student being more exposed to entrepreneurial activities and innovative thinking. What is happening currently? When are those days when people used to work in solo, in silos, so for instance? So it is very important that it's about time that we do a lot of multidisciplinary work, and then we encourage a culture of collaboration rather than everyone working there on her or his own. So researchers should develop research plan and target design to systematically address risk and address value proposition. One of the things that is very important, when you're going to do a research, you need to do a research that is going to address the situation that you've got in your country. I mean, like now, where we've got COVID-19, we know that a lot of researchers have been done through that. But in terms of that, we know that there was a lot in terms of the vaccine that needed to be done, so that at least one could be able to benefit based on that. So entrepreneurial research is on the rise, albeit very slow. What is happening, a lot of people, they are trying to go the route of entrepreneur, but you will see that sometimes, in most of the time, in the university, they end up offering entrepreneur as a theory, and it cannot be offered as a theory. It is a practical. This is one of the things why it end up being so slow. And on the other hand, there's also a lack of human resource capacity and a lack of funding for entrepreneurial research in order to meet the demand of food. This is one of the things that sometimes is always lacking, especially in South Africa, where the funding for entrepreneurial research is not there yet. And then this can be due to several obstacles delaying the implementation of entrepreneurship research. What are those commonalities that we have? I just want to bring this, that we've talked about traditional medicine. Everyone, you go to China, traditional medicine, Brazil, traditional medicine. Traditional medicine are commonly used as an alternative to or in conjunction with Western medicine in the developing world. In most cases, most of the people, they still prefer to use natural medicine because everything is natural. As we know, a lot of people, they prefer that because it's natural. And about 30% of modern medicine are made from medicinal plants. I mean, it's not like when one talk about traditional medicine, you talk about something that people don't know. The very same Western medicine that we are using, they are actually made from medicinal plants. When you look at between 1981 to 2014, about 83% of approved anti-cancer drugs were either natural products or were based on mimic natural products. So one could see that nothing stops us to say, if we can use medicinal plants, perhaps to cure cancer, to cure COVID, one could come with a solution. And why traditional medicine? They are more easily accessible. We all know it is easy for us to be able to use that because it has been used as an alternative. And then they are cheaper than these conventional drugs, and they believe to be safer than modern drugs, because one of the things one could say that, especially when you have tested the safety and efficacy. Traditional medicine have been useful for treatment of various illnesses. Why I'm bringing this is just to show that we, as a country or as BRICS, as collaborator, nothing stops us that we should have actually tapped into seeing whether can't we use this traditional medicine, where perhaps we can look whether they've got the effect or whatever they can in terms of therapeutic effect on treating, for instance, COVID, as we're talking about. These plants are important in healing because of the presence of phytochemical constituents, which are primary and secondary compounds that occur naturally in medicinal plants. Why I'm saying so is because of, if we have to go through that route of looking or taking the traditional medicine, one will have to look at the phytochemical that they've got, because we all know when you do the biochemist or the chemist that they might have those secondary metabolites that always naturally in the medicinal plants. Secondary compound exhibit various pharmacological activities where in most cases, if people are using secondary compounds, they can use them as an anti-inflammatory, or where you can start preparing them, or anti-proliferative agent, anti-cancer, anti-malaria, and antibacterial and antiviral activities. It is therefore why traditional medicine, it is necessary to strengthen the integration of traditional medicine in the national healthcare system. I mean, nothing stops us to start bringing traditional medicine in our healthcare system. And I can see that if you look at the BRICS countries, this is one of the things that we've got it in common. We also need to promote and encourage the practice, education, and training of traditional medicine to improve the quality and outreach of healthcare services. One will have also started saying, perhaps it's about time that one can have a curriculum for traditional medicine in the university where students can start being taught about it. Traditional medicine has played an indispensable role in protecting national health and carrying forward civilization, and intensifying cooperation in traditional medicine between the BRICS nation is of great significance to benefiting people worldwide. And why I'm putting that is because of our saying we've got something in common as a BRIC if we can really take this further. When you look at the impact, for instance, I always look at South Africa. When I look at South Africa, I always said we had a unique demographic challenges, and COVID-19 countermeasures needs to be appropriate, effective, and safe. So now, what is happening due to the women and culinary diversity of its population? South Africa, which a lot of people, not even South Africa per se, I can say again, Africa, is rich in native flora that is currently tapped as medicine by traditional healers. But one of the things that we discovered so far, or however, little is known about the natural products of this native flora and their potential to serve as a remedy for COVID-19. So you could see that when we were talking about the vaccine, talking about other treatment, one could have looked at the traditional medicine. And why I'm bringing it is because of when we collaborate, the BRICS, these collaborative countries, as we've got at least a couple of things in common. I'm going to also add a little bit of things that we know that in common. When you talk about tissue engineering, or when you talk about stem cell, again, I know between the BRICS country, some of them, they are actually developed far. The others, they are still undeveloped, but we are already getting there. You look at tissue engineering. When you look at tissue engineering, is the technologies that has been developed, and then to voluminous areas in medicine, such as a high throughput drugs discovery, also for personalized cancer therapy, for immune modulation and organ transplantation. Hence, I always talk about tissue engineering. I guess that is actually the way to go, because a lot of countries, they all know what is this tissue engineering and regenerative medicine. Now, what are those key ingredients for tissue engineering? And just to show how one could actually use that together with medicinal plants, which is both the commonalities for the BRICS countries. When you take morphogenetic signal, in this case, one can say, I'll take medicinal plants, and then you take the responding stem cell, and then you've got the extra matrix scaffold. See what is going to happen. If you take this, and you add your scaffold, and you add your stem cells, this is going to help in terms of you can regenerate lung. This is just to show what is just happening in terms of that. So it depends whether you're going for the kidney or whatever. I use the lung because of I was more talking about the COVID-19, because this is where in most cases it affects the lung. Now, regenerative medicine or tissue engineering emphasize clinical translation, including creative workflows to optimize bringing the bench top to the bedside. And I think it's about time that when you do this, one needs to understand how is this going to be applied clinically. In the current setting of limited clinical data and rising patients' mobility and mortality, tissue engineers will be welcome and available allies in the COVID-19 pandemic. And I guess this is where one of the things that we have to start looking at as a country. The virus primarily affects the lungs, which we all know that. Now, these are all areas in which our tissue engineers are primed to make significant contribution for COVID-19, the next coronavirus epidemic, or other future viral outbreaks. So you could see, I brought all this to technique just to see that we've got a lot in common, and then we can always make sure that we work together and we use this. Tissue engineering, it's specialized in the application of engineering principle to biological system, which facilitate the generation of fundamental knowledge, as well as technologies that could be key in the pandemic. And I think one could have asked herself or himself a question, how long or how many people they have actually think about using this. The tissue engineers are well versed in collaborative models, working closely alongside with the clinician, because you cannot work this alone. Hence, it is very important that it's a collaborative effort where the biologist, the chemist, the physicist, mathematician, and the veterans and other specialists, which will be critical in the multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary approach to combating the virus known as SARS. What I'm trying to put it here is to show that when I talk about collaboration, when I talk about multidisciplinary, that we cannot do all these things as a biologist in silo. It is very important that you will be able to collaborate and to work together. And it boils back to the same thing as a BRICS, as a countries as well. Whatever South Africa don't have the expertise, nothing stopped them to tap into another country where they could actually be able to get those expertise. So what is needed? We need, because of already the collaboration is already there amongst ourselves, we need to explore the native flora of each one's country as a source of novel biomarkers for treating COVID-19 and to evaluate purified natural products from these plants for the treatment of COVID-19 and other related conditions. Clearly, we can work together if we are looking at. There will be a short-term motivation is to respond to the urgent need for a solution against COVID-19. Again, the long-term, which we can, and we all seen that it has always been a challenge, was to develop a vaccine or either to develop a supplement or drugs from plant crude extract that will be able to treat COVID-19. If I can talk about the 17th Sustainable Developmental Goal, it talks exactly what I've just been explaining. The Sustainable Developmental Goal, it seeks to promote partnership at various levels. And hence, I've been stressing it, that it is very important. To this end, COVID-19 vaccine development partnership in our BRICS country are inevitable in facilitating ethical access to affordable and safe vaccine the world over. So whilst I'm talking about that, I'm just wanted to make sure that these are the recommendations in terms of what one can do that. With South Africa being part of BRICS, its presence can assist in leveraging the partnership to ensure that COVID-19 vaccine developed by BRICS are effectively deployed in Africa. What also needed to happen in conclusion, we need to set up a political responsibility, support each other's COVID-19 response, and share relevant information and COVID-19 control experience. We also need to pursue practical cooperation on vaccine, which we have also seen that, including a joint research if we have to, and production and mutual recognition of standards. We also need to have that exchange programs amongst ourselves, which I know that is already been there. Whether it is in terms of the vaccine export or drugs raw material supply, the whole interconnected health system make it essential for the countries to work together to fight the pandemic. This is what I just wanted to share in closing. I thank you, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Professor Keo. It was very interesting to see how you presented a little bit of your research on tissue engineering and also medical plants. Thank you very much. It was very enlightening, enlightful. I would like to make a question about your presentation. You mentioned that yet there's a need to apply the traditional medicines in the healthcare systems. And I would like to know, I think we have some efforts in India towards that. In Brazil, as far as I'm concerned, there's no traditional medicine yet applied in the public health system. But I would like to know what are the perspectives for the implementation of traditional medicine in the healthcare system of South Africa?
Thank you so much for that question. Currently in South Africa, we are trying to work with traditional healers, if I can call them, or traditional doctors, but you can call them, to bring them. But what is just important is to make sure that their products that they are giving it to the patient, they need to be tested for safety and efficacy. And I think this is one of the things that we need to work together. They need to work with the scientists so that the scientists can be able to assist in terms of testing the safety and the efficacy of their products. I'm talking from experience when I was working with them, when I developed a product, and then to make sure that it needs to be tested. So far, so good in South Africa. They are trying to work together with them, but we are also emphasizing the importance of testing the safety and efficacy of their products.
Perfect. That's a very interesting topic because there's this part of implementation that also has a lot to do with a lecture we had yesterday, and that's very interesting because of the intellectual property rights of these traditional medicines. Yes. And I wonder there's a little bit regarding the part of the traditional communities that have the rights over this traditional medicine. So,
good question. What is happening in the case? In my case, because I was working with a traditional healer, and when I developed my product, when I filed a patent, her name was also part and parcel of the patent. She also had shares in terms of the percentage in the company. So what happened there, they do allow that in South Africa, that if it belongs to the community, they need to have shares, or it is actually their community that also needs to benefit in terms of that. So there is that beneficiary sharing, and then they promote the beneficiary sharing between you working with them, so that it must be very clear in terms of beneficiary sharing.
Definitely, and that's very interesting. Also, you've mentioned the COVID-19 vaccine production. So considering that there's the BRICS Vaccine Center and Research and Development Center that is being established, it was formally to be established in South Africa as a proposal since the 2018 declaration. So that's very interesting also that you have this perspective on the vaccine production, because maybe there even could be more initiative regarding these traditional medicines and the possibility of BRICS collaborating in IP matters, also with global health perspectives.
Mm, mm. I fully agree with that, because for me, that's one of the things. I guess it's just because of to do a vaccine production from the plants can take forever based on the cost and also being able to test. But if we work together as the countries, one could see how we can always leverage from where the other countries don't have the resources to spend some time in the other countries where there are the resources, and to see how we can do that. I believe something can come out then.
That's amazing, Professor. I also agree with you, and I think as researchers in BRICS, there's a lot of potential that we can explore in this, and especially considering this multilateral areas that you've mentioned, that we need to make this collaboration happen so we can make the most out of it.
Yes, yes, I think so. And I think from the BRICS, this is where we start. After these conferences, one has to ask what is next? What is the take-home message? What can we do as both countries? Rather than having this and then we stop there. Or perhaps from this now, it can be like from the workshop or from the conference you have been having, what are the burning issues that people have been discussing? And let's see if we can have a call for research where it can be a multilateral, and then be able to put all the 5 countries together and then under one roof and be able to work together. Perhaps from this, that can be the way forward that you guys can look at.
I love this expression you used, like a common rule for all the 5 countries, apart from the differences in global and in public health systems and everything. I think we are able to do that. One example that I think that also aligns with the part of the use of traditional medicines, not exactly traditional medicines, but also the use of this multidisciplinary work field, is also the collaboration that BRICS have established in the, I don't think I know exactly the translation, but the you know, the feeding, when the mother feeds the baby. So there was a seminar on this in BRICS, and Brazil, if you know the word, that would be very helpful.
When they're breastfeeding.
Exactly, breastfeeding. I forgot the word, I'm sorry, but there was a seminar on breastfeeding, and Brazil is exporting the model to other BRICS countries. So I think this initiatives, we're also able to introduce this, that you mentioned, the one roof, and we're able to have shared models of cooperation on global health, and that will be very amazing.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, that perhaps we can look at that for the medicinal plants and stuff like that, for the global health, and see how we can work together and cooperate within our countries.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Professor Keo. I think we're having a very interesting conversation. I'd like to know if you would like to have a final remark.
For me, I just want to say, this is the beginning. Let's continue working together. They usually say a luta continua. The struggle has to begin. I think if you know that word. And I would say, I hope after this conference, we can have 3 or 4 topics that we can start looking at and have a call that it can be a multidisciplinary or multilateral call, so that all these 5 countries, we can have something in common. For me, that can be one of the things that can say that was the outcome of this conference, and then to work together. And thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really humble and appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Professor Keo. We are actually honored to have you here today for this wonderful presentation. Thank you very much for your availability. availability. I would also like to thank our attendees who are watching us and Instituto Ibrachina for all the support during this conference. This is the last formal day of the conference. However, we are still having a closing lecture next Wednesday with Ambassador Rodrigo Baena, who is the Brazilian ambassador in Russia, and it will be next Wednesday at 10:30 in the morning. So we are still able to make to register for your certificate. So if you like to have a certificate, please fill the forms in the description. And I would like to thank once again you all for your participation. Thank you, Professor Keo. Thank you, Instituto Ibrachina. And now we'll be closing this session. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Professor Keo.
Thank you so much and good morning and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.